gentlemen, welcome
Ooh, yeah.
to another...
Nice.
Ooh, yeah.
I want my wife back! That's what I want!
Midlife Krisis.
That is an intro.
Thank you very much. And special shout out to, of course, Corey Haim.
Couldn't do this without you.
For that angel with that wingspan, thank you so much for all the lift that I get from you daily.
You are the wind beneath our
Yeah,
wings.
absolutely. And, by the way,
You know what? It's time for me to go home. This is enough. I've had enough.
Corey doesn't mean it. He doesn't mean that. But what he does mean to say, Uncle Bob, is that new Call of Duty, real good. It's a real good video game. Today we're going to talk about the new Call of Duty Black Ops 6. But in addition to that, I wanted to talk about how this is an example, an exceedingly rare example of Microsoft Xbox and Game Pass just nailing it in exactly the way that it was sold to you. So let's start off by talking about the new Call of Duty a little bit, and then we'll kind of have this discussion about when Game Pass hits. It's a goddamn neat thing. Have you played any of this game at all, or do you have any plans on playing?
I do, actually, because the reviews have been so good.
Oh, yeah.
I will not play the multiplayer, but usually those single player campaigns are like 5-hour cinematic movies.
It's great.
And I do plan on getting through that as soon as I finish with the new Life is Strange game, which was it's just a higher priority. That's the front burner, and then Call of Duty's on the back.
So tell me,
burner.
what awesome 420 emblems and badges do you get in Life is Strange? Because there's a bunch of real sweet ones in Call of Duty.
I just wish you could just play any of the Life is Strange games just for the jokes, just for the content.
Well, I mean, you've thrown down the gauntlet, so now I feel like it's just a matter of time.
Or will I just have like a Twitch stream with a camera on you, just like getting more and more pissed off as you would play this game, as you hear indie music.
That's such a good idea.
And as you experience like a teenage girl going through the seemingly big problems that teenage girls go through.
To literally any viewer who leaves the comment, yes, I would watch this asshole play these games live on, let's say, Tuesday evening. If one of you leaves that comment, I will see to it that this becomes a reality. Because if for no other reason, it's for the research that it needs to get done.
So you remember when this is slightly embarrassing to air live, but when you told me that you I don't know if I'm gonna be able to say it.
Oh boy,
that you watched Dawson's Creek.
Oh yeah,
through my eyes.
Yeah.
So for the fans out there, Dawson's Creek is a show that aired when I was like of appropriate age for it. I was like 17-ish when the first season aired. And at the time, I thought it was basically the best television show that was ever made.
So for context, I was, I believe, 13 years old at the time.
And already knew.
And I already knew, and it took, it never happened, where I was like, well, let's see, am I going to go break glass in the ditch tonight? Or am I going to go watch Dawson's Creek?
Right.
I got to be honest with you, break glass in the ditch was always the choice.
I used to plan my entire life around the weekly episode of Dawson's Creek on the Frog.
Yeah. Oh, brother. On the Frog.
So 10 years later, at least, I think you called me up and you're like, Rob, I'm watching Dawson's Creek now. You're almost 30 at the time. But I'm watching it through your teenage eyes, and it's so much better.
So what had happened was Netflix brought all of Dawson's Creek onto streaming, and this is in the magical beauty days of old Netflix streaming, where you're paying $7,
you're just getting
and you're getting the
avalanche.
world. Yeah, you're getting the world for your $7. Those days are sadly behind us. But anyway, my wife, like you, was of age and enjoyed Dawson's Creek in its original run, so she was the one that kind of instigated it, like wanted to rewatch it. Yeah. I told her the story that you used to watch it like legitimately, and you would like use it as like a philosophical tool to work out your own life problems. And that piqued her interest to watch it more as well. So that begat an entire from episode 1 to series finale run through And I would watch the show, and occasionally I'd call you and try to get into your head, like, all right, what were you doing in your life at this time? Because I just watched season 4, episode 6, and Pacey had a really good point. And anyway, we would go back and forth. And to answer your question, and it was one of the most entertaining media consumption events of my entire life, was watching that show. And I'll say this: it started my proper fandom into appreciating the fine art that is teenage dramas. So from Dawson's Creek, my wife and I went to ABC Family's own Secret Life of the American Teenager, which, of course, as you know, gave the world Shailene Woodley. She comes from that show. Yeah. The immortal Amy Juergens. Again, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, friend of friends. But we watched that. We watched Switched at Birth, which was on, I believe, also ABC Family. And that's about twin daughters that they get separated at birth, and then one goes into like a poor life, and then the other goes to like a rich life. And then they meet each other as teenagers, and they found out how their lives went.
What conflict?
And all along, you've got your sappy, melodramatic. I mean, it encompasses I love Shenmue's shitty voice acting.
Yeah.
I love teenage melodrama. It's one and the same to me.
It's just so much fun. I especially liked when you would text me about saying, like, I would just watch season 4, episode 3 or something like that, and I would give you quotes from the episodes. My favorite B plot was when Pacey gets detention.
Oh, magical. Just a wonderful conflagrance of events.
All right, so Life is Strange is just that.
Okay.
All over again.
Uh-huh.
And I think you'll have a good time with it if you watch it through my eyes, through my teenage self's eyes.
I am so in.
Yeah. Just
one commenter, just one. It will take one of you to make this happen.
Just wait until the 2 teenage girls are caught smoking pot, and then the dad comes in and is like, whose marijuana is this? And then you have to choose if you're going to rat out your friend or not. High quality gameplay.
Did you rat out your friend?
So, since you brought it up, actually.
Yeah.
Not only did I rat out my friend, but this is the best part. Like the total dad that I am now. At the end of each episode of the game, it tells you what percentage of other players made that choice.
Yes.
The percentage of people who ratted out the friend, it's literally 1%.
That's so awesome.
The only area of my life that I'm a 1%er in.
Well, no.
Is being a narc.
There was that run when you were in the Hells Angels. You were definitely then.
Yeah.
So anyway, that gauntlet has been thrown. Did you sell me this car? I got to tell you, you definitely sold me this car.
It's a little topical because the most recent Life is Strange game before the one that came out last week was called True Colors, and it's about God, this is such good content, and it's about someone who feels emotions or can see emotions.
Oh, okay.
So if you're angry, there'll be like a red glow coming off of you, and then there's gameplay stuff associated with that. It's so fantastic.
This sounds perfect in every way, shape, and form. Let me ask you this: what's ABC Family's involvement in this?
I don't know. I know, but I bring it up because Microsoft's involvement is that at least when I played it, it was on Game Pass. Is it still on Game Pass? I don't know. But if you want to not play Call of Duty so that you can play Life is Strange True Colors, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with that decision.
Well, if my choices are shoot dudes in the head with guns, or digital Dawson's Creek, this is a really tough choice. I got to be honest with you.
Digital Dawson's Creek is good.
Oh boy, man! When we take a detour, it usually ends up at a golden impasse, as that just did. So anyway, back to Call of Duty.
Back to shooting guys in the head.
Yeah. You plan on playing this game? You haven't yet.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you play through the entire story?
No. But to touch on the point that you made about these things being like 5 hours long, that rules, and it's a big reason why I am playing it, because here's a game that I can finish in a relatively short amount of time. But B, I don't think that's true. I think it's not. By no means is it like this super long thing. But so I gravitated towards playing it because, like you, I'd heard a lot of good stuff about it, and I was also kind of in the mood to play some brain dead blockbuster, blow shit up, expensive looking thing that would take me roughly, somewhere between 5 to 10 hours.
Sure.
I have heard, and now I'm experiencing, that this game has some open world stuff So I don't know how long fully it takes, but I think this is going to be a little bit longer than your typical Call of Duty campaign. I think I'm right about 5 or 6 hours into the game, and I just got to this point that is, like I was saying, it's like open world, which rules, and it's something that... So by no means have I played every single Call of Duty game. And in fact, I checked all the way out after Modern Warfare 2 on the PS3 360 era. It just didn't... The shooting civilians things really bothered me.
We talked about that, yeah.
It bothered me way more than I ever thought something like that would bother me, just because of there's no payoff to it. Like, you could... and I don't want to get into, like, because we'll seriously talk about this for like another half hour.
You're talking about the no Russian specific.
Yes. But anyway, so that was a thing that left a sour taste in my mouth for the reasons that it did, both creative and also, just humanitarian speaking.
Right.
But by that point, like, the multiplayer had kind of passed me by, and from like a skill standpoint, like, I was no longer like capable of like being able to like, it was like my kill to death ratio is like 1 to 50 or something like that, and that'll push you away as it does, because losing, even though I don't give that much of a shit, I give enough of a shit to where like I want to like last more than like 5 seconds of playing multiplayer.
Yeah.
So that just kind of passed me by, and I never really dipped back into the series. The only reason I'm back is, number one, is the access. The fact that this is, after all said and done, all the lawsuits, all the bullshit, all the money, all the millions and millions and millions of dollars spent on this moment, it's now here.
Yep.
And here's this brand new Call of Duty game that's coming up, and I just get to play it because I, like you, spent a bunch of money up front on Game Pass deals to ensure that I had this service until like 2026 or something like that.
You do, friend.
Yeah.
Oh, and I guess they also included a previous Call of Duty game. I think Modern Warfare 3 or something like that.
I think so. I think almost overnight, like once the biggest part of that Activision deal was done, like that night, a bunch of Activision stuff went up on Game Pass, and so there's more than one current or semi-current Call of Duty that you could have been playing this whole time. Obviously, this is the big deal is that this is like on, brand new. It's funny too. Like, I've seen commercials for this game on, not that I'm watching much fucking normal TV these days, but just like on YouTube or whatever. And the commercials I've seen are all like really PlayStation heavy. And it's weird to think that this is still, after all the business stuff, like this is a Microsoft product that is selling on PlayStation. It's probably going to sell really well on PlayStation. And they're marketing it as such, but it's like, nope, this is a Microsoft fucking wholly owned thing. It's weird. There's a weird fit to it.
It's like when the first time you saw Sonic on a Nintendo property.
Yeah, or no. So I bought the Nintendo Online, the controllers that you can buy for the old games as a part of their annual service. Like, I have the only reason I bought this is because it blew my mind. But I have a 3-button Sega Genesis controller that when you turn it over, there's a fucking Nintendo logo printed on it.
I can't.
And
I can't, bro.
I can't nuts. It's crazy. That's the whole reason I bought that thing. Well, that, and I have a sickness, and the only cure is buying multiple controllers. Yeah. But anyway, back to Call of Duty. So the stars have aligned and laid forth this perfect pathway for me to check out Call of Duty for the first time in many years. And I'm really, really happy to report that like none of this is time wasted. Like, this is a really, really good game. Yeah. So I've played a bunch of the campaign, and then I've played, I would say, like an hour or so of just zombies. Now, the zombies thing completely passed me by. Like, back when I was an active Call of Duty player and attention payer, those off-year games that were done by Treyarch, which this one's done by Treyarch, like, that's where those zombie stuff started. And I think that was at World at War, or it was the Call of Duty that came out after 4 but before Modern Warfare 2, and it was back to World War II. That's when they introduced the zombie mode stuff, and I watched some people play it back then, and it looked kind of cool. I never personally played it myself, but it's like a horde mode. It's just an endless a bunch of zombies attack you in waves, and then you like have to get money, buy new stuff, all that good stuff. So the endless loop of any arena mode is there with that, and it is really genuinely fun. I had more fun with it than I thought I would. even though I've only played an hour of it. Like, I can't wait to go back and play more. I haven't touched any of the multiplayer stuff other than that because I'm scared. I'm just straight up. I want to get through the campaign first, and then like I will dabble in the multiplayer because I'm curious. It's been for me to spend any amount of time playing an online Call of Duty game. It's been since I want to say 2012. That's when Modern Warfare 2 came out, and I did play that online for a while. We've talked about it on the show. Like I played Halo Infinite for that first season.
Yeah, and had fun with it.
Had a lot of fun with it, and that was the last shooter that I played a lot of online. So that's kind of fresh. That's like within the last 5 years. Yeah. So we'll see. I might get a kill to every 25 deaths. So you never know.
I'm contributing.
Yeah, I'm contributing to these games. But as far as the campaign is concerned and the overall quality of the game, it is really, really, really good. Like it's polishy and sheeny everywhere you look. The return to the Desert Storm 90s era, I think they've done that before in other Black Ops games, but I've never played them. So this is all new to me, but not that new to me because, you know, I'm fucking old and I remember 1991. But it's cool. Like you see these big paintings of like Bill Clinton everywhere and like Saddam Hussein and shit like that.
Yeah.
But so the time era that you're in is interesting. But the most interesting thing to me, and again, like this could be totally ignorant just because I'm so out of the loop when it comes to Call of Duty, but I do think this is the first time or one of the few times that they've done this. But you can like play the game in multiple different ways rather than just like go from line from A to B and mow down everyone that you can and survive, which is like that's my experience of a Call of Duty game. Right. And nothing wrong with that. Like that there's certainly a time and a place for that. And no one did it better in my opinion. I said this in a Discord that you're in, and I really mean it. Like to me, even though Call of Duty is super duper long in the tooth, and boy is it, like they're on their like, you know, fucking 37th game in only 20 years. That's right. But it is to me in terms of like how it feels. It's like what Mario on the NES in terms of platforming and jump mechanics. That's what Call of Duty is to me when it comes to first-person shooters. Like you have your people who decry your Halos and all that other stuff, but for my money, the feel of a Call of Duty is the way a first-person shooter is supposed to be. Like so, end all.
Let me ask you this then, which would be that every year EA releases a Madden game, and everybody says this really didn't change much from last year's Madden game. Everybody says that. And every year, Ubisoft releases an Assassin's Creed game, and other than the genre setting changing, a lot of times people say, well, it's not that much different than last year's Assassin's Creed game.
Yeah.
So as you're playing this Call of Duty game, and although you don't play it every single year, and you're enjoying the experience, are you seeing differences and improvements compared to the Call of Duties of the past?
Yes, absolutely, and mainly in like the variety of the gameplay. So like when I was saying you can kind of play this game in different ways, like you can literally do things sneaky like Metal Gear Solid style, like espionage, sneak around stuff. There's a really fun mission where you're infiltrating it's like a gala, like a political gala dinner type thing, and you have this camera that's been dolled up by your engineer buddy to be able to take copies of retinal scans for you to use on the machine that like unlocks with retinal scans, that kind of thing. So you have to figure out a way to go take a picture of a certain politician's eyes to get this. And so you can like kind of brute force it if you want, the whole mission I'm talking, or you can like sneak the whole thing out. And I've never played a Call of Duty game that had any sort of option like that. Like it's usually just shoot dude in head, hide behind box, go forward, shoot other dudes in head, and just keep going forward. So the fact that there is anything like that at all is totally unique. And again, I could be totally ignorant. Maybe this was in, 3 or 4 Call of Duties that I never played, but new to me, and it's awesome. I think that one thing you can't say, it's weird. Like, and Activision used to do that whole staggered release thing where Infinity Ward would work on it 1 year, and they would like leapfrog each other. And I was always blown away at like even. The Call of Duties that I wouldn't play, that didn't interest me at all. Like I would still see them because they're ubiquitous with video games. Yeah. And I was always impressed by the quality. Like that's every single Call of Duty game from a certain point on. Like they've always been locked 60 frames per second. Like there's a certain quality to the engineering of those games that And quite frankly, it should be this way. The amount of money that they
I was
fucking
gonna
generate.
say it's the biggest game release every
Yeah,
year.
like so, like they have no excuse, literally. But the good news is like that shines through, and it shines through so well with this game. Like the character models, I'm playing on Series X, obviously, because we're talking about Game Pass here. But you'd be hard pressed to find a better looking game. Like maybe Cyberpunk, you could argue, certainly Hellblade 2, but even with Hellblade 2. From a technical standpoint, it's not doing as much as this Call of Duty game is.
That's the thing. It's like you're kind of cheating if you're creating a game that looks beautiful but is a walking simulator.
Yeah.
There's not as much particles, stuff
Totally.
flying around and all that. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, it looks, the visual fidelity is photorealistic at times, but the compromise is that the gameplay engagement is so small.
Yeah,
it's just like, what are we doing?
very slight. Yes. But yeah, there's upgrade stuff, which again, I've never played a Call of Duty in the campaign. Of course, there's always multiple.
Oh, there's upgrade stuff. All right, so it's already better than Hellblade 2.
Yeah. Oh, did you say the word upgrade? So you get to do a thing? Nice. I'll check this out. But yeah, it's really, really good to the point where I kind of knew going in that it was because it started to have some buzz and people were talking good about Call of Duty for the first time, seemingly for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
But it delivered, and it just to tie it back to when Game Pass works, and I can think of a couple examples of this. Certainly at the time, the release of Halo Infinite felt like this. Where like here's this big giant game that you've been waiting to play, and it's basically yours. You have it. It's on your shelf digitally, and for whatever reason, like my stupid brain allows me to accept this as I talk with this shelf full of fucking physical media behind me.
Shelves, Brian, plural.
Right. But you know, it just that whole experience was great and it worked until it didn't. But that's a different story. That's Halo Infinite's story to tell. But another example for me would have been when Flight Simulator came out. Like it was like, holy shit, I can fly over my house. Like this is so next gen feeling.
I mean,
and
you
again,
just get it. It's just like, and now I can pre-install it. Now I can just start playing.
Oh
this
yeah,
thing.
that's the other thing is like I'm being advertised this game, which okay, fine, fair play. Like we're all good here. But like on the advertisements, it talks about preloading, and it's we did an episode about Monster Hunter and how like it's convoluted, seemingly for convoluted's sake. Yeah. Like here's an example of the total opposite of that. It's like, oh, here's this new game that you already own essentially, even though you don't. But it's pointless. Like you're gonna play it and be done with it, so you might as well say you own it. Here's this button on an ad. Click it. Boom. Everything installs. Yep. And it's seamless.
Yeah, and the first time I ever used Game Pass, I had to sell myself on it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I'm not streaming the games because I definitely did not want to do that. But I'm also not getting them the way that I'm getting them on Steam where I actually like own the game.
Yeah.
They're just being made available to me. But when I saw that it's like the installation process, I was like, oh, okay, so data's being downloaded to my hard drive. I'm just going to play the game like every other game, except it's theoretically Microsoft could take it away. But my God, look at the library of games that they're offering me. This is totally worth it. Now, that was a few years ago. I continue to say that Game Pass is the best deal in gaming, I believe. Well, Steam Family Sharing is the best deal in gaming right now.
The leader in worldwide entertainment.
Without a doubt. Got to plug that every episode. But Steam Game Pass Microsoft Game Pass is a fantastic deal. And recently, this Call of Duty thing, and they knew it. It was going to be a huge part of the merger. The Activision merger, and Sony was pretty scared about what it might mean to have Call of Duty made to be a part of Game Pass. I was all for it. I'm generally not for consolidation in the video game industry.
Yes.
But I was for this merger because I was, and it still am a little bit, worried that Microsoft might leave the hardware side altogether because they were just getting blown out of the water by Sony on hardware sales, in part because Microsoft's games sucked.
Try this on. So I just read a statistic from the month of October. As we record that, we're in early November. But for the month of October, the Nintendo Switch, which released in 2017, it was outselling all of the Xbox line of consoles 2-1, which is fucking insane.
So when you get data like that, you're like, oh man, Microsoft might see that and do the Sega and be like, we just don't want to be a part of this anymore. And I don't want that. There needs to be more than two console makers.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that Game Pass is almost like a perfect example of... No, it is a perfect example of like this is what Microsoft brought to the party.
Yes.
And it took all the generations of their involvement in the video game space to get to this point. And so the promise has been there, and it's been there for years. But in terms of like the delivery of what they were able to offer, it's very, very much fallen short. This is a total overcorrection, in my opinion. And obviously that's a good thing. But now it's almost like it's hard to not go back and think about like the beginning of the generations. And like to me, it was to the point where like, I mean, I completely missed the Xbox One. I had really no interest in it. And the word of mouth of how good Game Pass was got me to that point where I was like, you know what, I'm going to not buy a PlayStation 5. I'm going to start with Xbox because this Game Pass thing sounds fucking radical.
Yeah.
And it was until it wasn't.
Right. It's exactly right.
Yeah.
It was until it wasn't.
And they were never, only now does it seem like that they're with this release, like they're fucking nailing it. But it sucks to think about what could have been. And if Microsoft had all their shit together, if games like Redfall weren't Redfall, and by that I mean just a fucking better game, but all of their misses that we've talked about on the show,
Starfield,
if even half of those were hits, like the fortunes could have been
just one system seller. If
exactly.
Starfield had been the game that we have been recorded somewhere at some point saying spaceships are cool, and if you make
we'll die on that hill. Spaceships are cool. Absolutely.
And it's like nobody can make a cool spaceship game. It's like Star Citizen is still out there floundering. Homeworld came out this year. That sucked. Starfield.
I'll say this. Ubisoft Starlink, which shout out to you as a tool that helped me quit the slavery known as nicotine addiction.
Good story.
That's a hella good spaceship game.
With toys.
With actual physical spaceships that you get to touch.
That's fantastic. Fantastic for both of us. Yeah, I put a lot of hours into that too. That was cool. And then never heard from again.
Yeah. Promptly never heard from ever again.
So with Game Pass recently, they also put a game you're not interested in at all, I think, but me and people of my mind are Frostpunk 2.
Okay.
So that's a fairly well-regarded release because Frostpunk 1 did pretty well. That was just given out on Game Pass, so that's cool. And then about a month from now, I should fact-check myself, especially since we're recording this, but I believe the Indiana Jones game is coming out. I think that's going to be on Game Pass.
It is. No,
Okay, because all the first-party games
that game comes out in as we record, it comes out in a couple days, I think. It's sometime...
Oh, I thought it was December.
Oh, you know what? You're right. It is. It's early December.
Okay.
But whatever. Weeks. It's in a matter of a few weeks. And the buzz on that game, by the way, is that it's going to surprise people, and it's one of the funniest games that you'll play. Like the writing, I've heard is like ridiculously funny.
That would be great because we never laugh at video games like basically since Portal 2.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, but it's like that's another one where it's like, hey, I was already paying for all this other stuff that you're giving me, and you're giving me this Indiana Jones game that would otherwise be $60. Cool, sign me up, Johnny. Yeah. So
there's also, well, as we're talking about like how it looks like Game Pass is like hitting this nice little golden stride. I'm a big fan of those Stalker games, and Stalker, I think it's called Call of Priapet, or no, I might be getting that wrong. That is a Stalker game. Anyway, there's a new Stalker game. Developers are Ukrainian, so clearly like their development time has been slowed a little bit. But that's another one too that I've been following for literally years now, and that's coming out before 2025. So you have the Call of Duty game, the Indiana Jones game, a new Stalker game, which I think that Stalker game, all it needs to do for to be a good game, in my opinion, is it just needs to run semi-decently, and then be like every other fucking Stalker game, and we're good. Like that's all it needs to do. So very low bar there, and I think it will surpass said bar. But then you have Flight Simulator. The new Flight Simulator is also coming out in this window of time.
Yep.
So like it's been a long road to get here, but it does look like Game Pass is starting to turn around.
Well, and this comes at a time when I don't know if this is a rumor or if it's actually happened yet, but Microsoft is making it so that you can stream any game that you have on Game Pass through any other device that you want to stream it through. So that's cool. And then also a really important component of all this is that Sony is shitting the bed right now. Mm-hmm. The live service games are flopping. We did a whole episode on the Concord thing.
Yep.
And they don't have any major first party releases that came out this year, with
Astrobot?
exception
Yeah.
of Astrobot.
Astrobot.
I would
yes.
I would never dare to say that Astrobot is not a major release.
I switched to this camera so fast. Not so fast. I was ready with it, but you saw to it
Right.
to make it right.
But for Astrobot, which
Yeah.
we both love and is deservedly considered for one of the a Game of the Year award, fine. Other than that, Sony's had a quiet year.
It's
So
been
there's-
rocky,
so
to say
there's-
the least.
There's
Yeah.
room for Microsoft
Yes.
now. So in good, I want Microsoft to catch up. I don't want anybody to dominate. I just want them to all compete against
Yeah.
each other and for all of them to continue to exist. That's all I want.
It's a simple ask. Yeah. But going back to how good this Call of Duty game is, how excited I am for all these other Game Pass games that we just talked about. Now does look like it's one of those times, one of those pivotal, like this is our last fucking chance to get something going here. Moments in time for Microsoft. I think if the rumors are true and they end up doing like a handheld, like a
too.
Steam Deck thing,
Yeah.
if Game Pass gets to a better place and they have a handheld Steam Deck type device, like I do think that they have a good shot of at least steadying the boat a little bit more than it is now. But it's also kind of hard to say, and maybe even a little disingenuous to talk about this. They're like a fucking almost $1 trillion company, if not a $1 trillion company.
The little guy,
Yeah.
the little engine that could, Microsoft.
At the end of the day, as long as Microsoft wants there to be an Xbox, it will
yeah.
continue to exist.
Yeah, they're in terms of market cap, they're like 5 times Sony.
Yeah. So I do think that the talks about them getting out of the hardware business, again, I think that's all. It just has to do with the attitude of the mama bear and how long they want to play in the sandbox.
Yeah.
And they've been there now since 2001.
Over 20 years.
Yeah, and I don't think they are going to be slowing things down. And again, what they brought is this thing, Game Pass. And Game Pass very much is as disruptive as Netflix was in the movie space, or has the potential to be.
Yeah, potential to be.
And so, when it delivers, as it's been doing with this Call of Duty game and this next upcoming batch we just talked about, it's a really hard argument to say to anyone you should probably spend $10 a month for this thing because it's really good.
We should check back on this in like a month, maybe the next time that the next episode. But it would be interested to see if Microsoft releases these figures, how much growth having Call of Duty on Game Pass has generated in terms of subscribers.
Absolutely.
Because they are obviously every person who plays on Game Pass who doesn't buy the game that otherwise would have bought the game is a net loss for Microsoft. Unless they buy a Game Pass subscription and then keep that subscription for at least 3 months. That's what Microsoft is counting on.
Yes.
And the sell is pretty easy because it's like, hey, gamer out there, you're already going to pay $60 for Call of Duty. How about you get it for $18 instead? And you're going to get all these other games as well.
Absolutely.
And you know what? You can cancel it after a month. I'm sure you'll remember to do that. So just pay your $18 now.
Like every health club membership, and we'll call Game Pass a health club. I will say, as someone who looked into canceling my subscription, because for a while there it was like I wasn't touching my Xbox at all.
Yeah.
And it was like, outside of buying a discounted disc game every handful of months or whatever, I don't why am I doing this kind of a thing?
It was like a couple of years.
Yeah.
That was like that.
Definitely. And so I did think about because I paid for Ultimate, which I think was at the time $16.
Yep.
And that's at least one burrito where I live. But still, I'm a miserly man and I think of these kind of things.
And you really love burritos.
And I really love burritos. So something's got to give. But anyway, I looked into canceling that Game Pass, and it is kind of funny how it is not that easy to cancel your Game Pass subscription. I had to dig through several menus on apps and on the console to try to find it.
So
it was pretty cool.
So your solution was, well, if I can't cancel it, I'm going to subscribe for the next 2 years to make sure that they can't change the price on me.
That's almost exactly what happened. Yeah. Well, but
I'm gonna give
at
you
a
more
discount.
money.
At a discount. I gave them more money, yes, but a fraction of the more money. 'Cause I think we did the same deal. It was like the deal that everyone ever who would be watching the show, I'm sure, took advantage of. But it was at CD Keys.
Yeah.
And I think it was like a third of the normal cost or something like
I
that.
think something like that. It was like I think you paid for 3 months, and basically 1 month of that was free compared to the regular price.
So, like, if I were to go buy this good-ass Call of Duty game, which I probably would have done if Game Pass didn't exist, and then gotten, like, one map pack or whatever, one piece of DLC, like, right there is what I spent to get 2 years of Game Pass. So, I feel like I'm doing all right.
I'm not questioning your decisions, which are the exact same decisions that I made.
Yeah, exactly.
No problem. So
I like how we both found online that there was a way to like even to milk that stone even further by like making like a dummy Indian account and then like transferring money. And we were both like, and I think at that point like you could get it for like it was like $6 a month or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
Or maybe anyway, we were both too scared. We were like, nope. That's not going to happen.
I think 3 years of Game Pass from right now is enough for me. I don't know where my life is going to be in 3 years, but if I have to pay for it again at that point, I think I'll be okay.
Right. But we still do need a bucket list converting our dollars to rubles at some point, just to say we did it, just for the story of it. But yeah, I think this Call of Duty rules. You definitely should play it. You should absolutely check it out. Even if like, I know you're not a big FPS guy, but I think you're like an appreciator of high quality video games guy.
That's true, yeah.
And so this is definitely that. And if you just stick to the campaign and even throw this thing on easy, like you're gonna have a good time with it. It's really fun.
BT, this is supposed to be a quiet year for games compared to 2023.
Oh yeah.
And then next year with Death Stranding 2 and GTA, that's going to be the big year again. And yet, just this last month and then going forward, at least for me, there was the Life is Strange game, which is, I just you put everything aside. You got to play that right away. But there's also a card game called The Bazaar that's made from this dude who used to play a lot of Hearthstone. Anyway,
Did you say card game?
So, are you done?
It's a 13-second clip, and go ahead.
So that came out. So that's also gotten some of my attention. New Dragon Age game, which somebody in my Steam family share has purchased. So I have access to that. So that's a thing. The Monster Hunter beta, like that's out there. And then I believe this week, the Mario and Luigi Brotherhood comes out.
Yeah, that's the early November. And then, there's that Zelda game that also exists that I don't think you've started playing yet.
I played through like the prologue.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, and this isn't a quiet year.
Yeah, no, real good point. And that it's funny you bring that up when we're having this conversation about Game Pass too. Like to me, Game Pass is like the thing that it's super easy for me to like pretend like it doesn't exist because I'll always prioritize like, Nintendo stuff or just shit that I spend like real money on.
Yeah.
Like just because that's how, God damn it, I'm going to get my value out of it.
That's right.
But I stopped playing that Zelda game. I haven't beaten that Zelda game yet. And I stopped playing it to play this new Call of Duty on Game Pass.
Yeah.
So this is like the first example of that for me actually happening.
Okay. That's high praise.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, all right here, Guy. That's going to do us here talking about Game Pass actually being good. Well, Microsoft doing good for a change.
Yeah, and good
nice.
for Microsoft.
Yes.
The little
engine that could. Yeah. I have it on good authority that those guys are going to make something out of themselves.
Plucky upstart.
Absolutely. Okay, friend. Well, I'll say like, subscribe, leave comment, offer suggestions for topics. Head on over to Spotify if that's your deal. We're there. Give us a 5-star review. That shit helps. And also, I will say, tell your friends about this fine program as you sit there and hopefully poop on the clock, as is your birthright. But anything other than pooping on the clock, any other final words from Uncle Bob?
I think
here?
that sums it up.
Cool. Well, that'll do it. Midlife Crisis, your source to poop right on the clock.